Draenor Village, Kingdom of Misthalin, 100 years ago. A man sporting a set of loose robes is heading south, where a long day's work awaits. But don't feel bad for him. The man was born on the heel of the runecrafting revolution and has been able to dedicate his entire career to the improvement of this age-defining skill. He's now close enough to see the Great Wizard's Tower, whose stones house his life work of research. But today, its silhouette looks different somehow. Puzzled, the man quickens his stride. As he makes his way further down the mighty bridge, his puzzlement turns into dread. The tower is being assailed on all sides by merciless flames. As more layers of realizations come tumbling down in his mind, panic grips the wizard's mind. He bolts forwards, animated by the energy of despair, intent on saving humanity's greatest asset before it turns to ashes. Welcome to the Questline Lore series, where we explore the lore and story behind the adventurer's greatest achievements. This second episode is about the Order of Wizards Quest series, which, while short, teaches us much of the fascinating history of humanity's most potent tools, magic and runecrafting. If you don't want to miss these deep dives into the underappreciated story of Gielinor, subscribe and turn on notifications. But for now, make sure your colossal pouch is filled to the brim, for it's time to craft this fascinating tale. The first quest in the series is so short you can easily double its length if you get distracted by a dragon impling on the way. Yet its completion time is a very poor indicator of its importance, for as we'll soon find out, it's no exaggeration to say that it marks a turning point for the entire human race. Number 1. Rune Mysteries. On a nice sunny Gielinorian day, an adventurer traveling through Lumbridge decides to walk into Duke Horatio's royal bedroom, like it ain't no thing, and ask him for a quest. He replies that although it's not quite a quest, he does have a task the adventurer could assist with. While going through old stuff gathering dust in the cellar, he came across a long-forgotten talisman. He knows that Gielinor's foremost group of magic users and researchers, the Order of Wizards, has been looking for magical artifacts of late, and the Duke is hoping the talisman might be one such relic. He asks the adventurer to deliver it to Archmage Sedridor in the Wizard's Tower, apparently having no issues with entrusting a potentially magical artifact to a random Yehu who just showed up in his room. The adventurer agrees to do the errand and heads west to the Wizard's Tower, headquarters of the Order of Wizards. As instructed, he shows the talisman to their leader, Sedridor, who looks unimpressed with the talisman. Nevertheless, he does give the item a token inspection, and after some examining, he quickly changes his tune, saying that there may well be something to the talisman after all, and cryptically adding that it may well be the last piece of the puzzle. When pressed on this intriguing statement, he refers to the lost legacy of the first tower, saying this talisman might lead them to the lost essence mine. The adventurer has no Gielinorly clue what the wizard is on about, so Sedridor teaches them about the basics and the importance of magic and runecrafting, explaining how the first Wizard's Tower was burned down by treacherous Zamorakian members of the Order, resulting in the scroll containing the teleportation spell to the mine being lost 100 years ago. Since then, the very few people who have been able to sell the Order some rune essence have remained tight-lipped about their source of origin. Returning to the topic of the talisman, Sedridor reveals that magic always leaves a trace, and that this artifact has definitely seen a lot of use in the past. It may have been brought to the essence mine many times, and its magical residue may well be able to lead them there. He tells the adventurer that he will need the insight of Aubury, a peerless expert in the field of runecrafting, and asks them to deliver to him in Varrock some research notes while the wizard continues to study the talisman. The adventurer brings the notes to Aubury, who says it must be important if Sedridor was in such a hurry to get them to him that he sent a complete stranger. After going through the notes, he says he hopes that by combining their knowledge, they might recover the lost incantation, although he doesn't want to celebrate prematurely. He hands the adventurer his own notes on the subject and sends them back to Cedridor. It seems Aubury was right, as after reading his notes, Cedridor finally manages to recover the teleportation spell, meaning the Order of Wizards has finally recovered their best asset after being deprived of the ability to acquire rune essence for a century. Cedridor tells the adventurer that for their invaluable assistance, which a carrier pigeon could have done just as well, they have earned unlimited teleportation to the Essence Mine, and says he will share the incantation with Aubury and others from the Order. He also returns the talisman to the adventurer and explains how it can be used as a guide to its corresponding runic altar. Somehow, randomly asking the Duke of Lumbridge for a quest turned into the first domino in humanity's rediscovery of rune essence, the tool that allowed their societies to thrive and reach their current dominance on Gielinor. This truly changes everything. This next chapter is a rare mini-quest that's still officially part of the quest series, in which we get to learn about the Order of Wizards' secretive rivals, the Zamorak Magical Institute. Number 2. Enter the Abyss. I don't know what they were doing there, but at some point the adventurer is apparently just chilling in the wilderness when they come across a mage of Zamorak north of the Edgeville Ditch. He tells them, quite rightly, that this isn't the place to talk, and to instead meet him in the temple located in southeast Varrock. After the adventurer gets violently claw-specked back to Lumbridge, I mean, what did they expect? It's the wilderness. They make their way to Mistelin's capital and go to the temple as instructed. The mage is indeed present and tells them that the wilderness was not the appropriate place for a conversation. A surprising statement coming from a Zamorakian, but no less true. He asks what the adventurer wants from them, to which they awkwardly reply that they didn't actually want anything. The mage, slightly puzzled, asks why they approached him in the first place then. Turns out the adventurer was just curious as to why someone would sell runes in the wilderness. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm a servant of Zamorak, he points out, which means he can't sell his stock in broad daylight, as the Saradominists have made sure that people like me are not welcome in these parts. The adventurer inquires about the source of his runes. We craft them, of course, says the mage. We, meaning he and his associates, he clarifies, although that doesn't really clarify much at all. The adventurer wonders aloud whether anyone's ever tried to stop them, reasoning that the Order of Wizards wouldn't appreciate Zamorakians crafting runes. The mage answers that he's sure they'd love to, but that he and his accomplices have methods of rune crafting that they can only dream of. Despite having piqued the adventurer's interest, he refuses to share more with someone who is not a member of their institute and has no reason not to immediately reveal the Zamorakian secrets to their mortal enemies in the Order of Wizards. Yet, he does say that while his institute was able to produce many more runes than the Order of Wizards could, something has changed. The mage believes that they have somehow rediscovered how to access the lost rune essence mine. As will become pretty evident in this video, our protagonist is not the best at reading the room, and admits that they were the one to help the Order find it, which, to nobody at all's surprise, greatly angers the mage. Before he decides to cast some nasty spell upon them, the adventurer tells him they're still willing to help. The mage points out that would mean the adventurer is helping both sides for their own gain, but then he adds that, as a Zamorakian, I can respect that, even though he's not exactly thrilled about it. He finally agrees that if the adventurer helps his institute access the rune essence mine, they will share their own rune crafting secrets in return. The adventurer agrees to the arrangement, and the mage says he only needs the essence mine teleportation spell. There is a slight issue there, however, as the adventurer admits they don't actually know the spell, and that they only ever get teleported there by others. The mage of Zamorak says this makes things slightly more complex, but that he can give the adventurer a scrying orb with a standard cipher spell cast upon it. If they can teleport to the rune essence mine from 3 different locations, the orb should allow the mage to reverse engineer the spell through the magic it has absorbed. The adventurer is handed a scrying orb and told to seek out 3 members of the Order who can teleport them. The adventurer does exactly that, traveling to the Rune Essence Mine 3 times using different mages, then returns to the Zamorak Temple in Varrock. They hand the scrying orb back to the Mage of Zamorak, who is happy to report that it does indeed contain what he needs. He upholds his side of the deal, revealing how his organization, which is called the Zamorak Magical Institute, or ZMI, can craft runes so quickly. They have found a way to teleport to all runic altars rather than having to travel to them, greatly increasing their runecrafting XP rates. What a bunch of nerds. To do this, they use another plane known as the Abyss. The mage says it's a complex place that cannot easily be explained, but gives the adventurer a book containing some research notes on it to help them understand a little more. This book contains a veritable wealth of information about the Abyss and teleportation magic, and we will return to it at the end of the video in the bonus lore section. Furthermore, the Mage of Zamorak will agree to teleport the adventurer to the Abyss if they go visit him in the wilderness again, although he warns the adventurer that the Abyss is filled with dangerous creatures, and that due to the teleportation spell being unstable, they should not expect to be able to use prayers once they're there. Finally, he gives the adventurer a small essence pouch, and their mini-quest comes to an end. The final quest in the series finds the adventurer helping in yet another rediscovery, but this time for something forgotten for far more than a measly century, and with potentially far darker consequences. Number 3. Temple of the Eye. The adventurer, sometime after the events of Enter the Abyss, comes upon a female wizard north of Al-Kharid. They ask her what a wizard is doing in town, and she replies that she's not just any wizard. She is Mia Purston, the leading researcher in teleportation magic for the Order of Wizards. She tells the adventurer to spend less time worrying about why I'm here, and more time asking life's real questions. The adventurer goes straight for the bait, asking what kind of questions she is referring to. Why do trees grow from stumps substantially faster than from seeds? Where do meteorites come from? Why do we have to hold our arms out to teleport successfully? She begins listing. The adventurer, who hadn't quite signed up for this, says they don't know and asks for the answers, but Purston doesn't know either. What a great conversation this is so far. The adventurer asks if she's here to figure out how trees grow, but she laughs this off, saying that she actually came here to buy something. She asks her new acquaintance what they know about the Abyss, a totally normal question to ask a stranger, and they reply that they know everything about it, which was not at all an answer the wizard expected. They explain how they helped Zamorakians access the Rune Essence Mine and were given access to the Abyss in exchange. Purston asks the adventurer if they realize that the ZMI are enemies to the Order of Wizards. The adventurer, as ever thoroughly incapable of reading the room, says they shouldn't have mentioned that. Fortunately for them, the wizard tells them not to worry, as she's never personally had much time for gods, despite the Order being a Saradominist organization, although she advises the adventurer not to tell other wizards, as they might not be over the moon knowing that their most valuable secret was given away. She returns to the subject of the Abyss, asking if it's true that the ZMI can access it, and saying the adventurer has just shared quite the revelation with her. They may be the perfect person to aid me in a little task, she says when they confirm it. But when pressed for details, she refuses to elaborate until the adventurer has already agreed to help. I wouldn't want you sharing my secrets, she explains, which is fair enough considering the adventurer's track record. After she assures them that there will be a reward worth their while in the end, the adventurer agrees to lend their help. First, Mia wants to know if the ZMI use their new access to the Abyss to gain quick access to the runic altars for runecrafting purposes. The adventurer confirms that they do indeed, but is surprised that the wizard was able to make such an accurate assumption. She's in fact been wondering for some time how they've been creating so many runes, but the obvious explanation dawned on her thanks to the adventurer's revelations. They deduced that she is seeking a way to access the Abyss too, but things are a little more complicated. She opens up about the something she was here to purchase, an amulet featuring an eye reminiscent of the Order of Wizards symbol. A foolish archaeologist by the name of Asgarnia Smith recently found this washed up near the ruins of User. The man thought it worthless, quote, despite his apparent archaeological credentials, Purston explains. She was lucky enough to buy it off him for only 100 coins, saying its true value is well beyond that. Its symbol is that of both the Order of Wizards and our home, the Wizard's Tower. Furthermore, she believes the amulet is thousands of years old, yet the Order was created at the start of the 5th Age, not even 200 years ago. The adventurer wonders how that's possible, but the wizard interrupts them, adding that she also recognized 2 distinct magical signatures in the amulet, one that's identical to the one found in Rune Essence, but she says it's the second that will blow your mind. The signature was the same as the energy from the abyss. The adventurer summarizes the situation. The wizard found an amulet bearing the symbol of her order despite being orders of magnitude older. That relic was found somewhere very distant to where the order now resides, and it's filled with energy from a dimension that until recently no one had even been to. Now you see why this is so exciting, she replies. She wants to figure out where the amulet came from, and she believes it's possible to trace it using the abyssal energy it still contains, but there's a catch. The spell needed to do so will only work properly from inside the abyss, and the adventurer is now beginning to understand why they were the perfect person for the job. Mia comments that she can't imagine the ZMI would want to help her out. The adventurer needs to take the amulet to the abyss and use the spell to work out its origins. Purston tells the adventurer to return to her once done, and advises not to let the Zamorakian mages know who sent them. Our quest enthusiast goes to the Mage of Zamorak and shows them the amulet, asking for some help with it. The mage, of course, recognizes the symbol of the Order of Wizards and asks what this is about. The adventurer explains that they would like some help figuring out where it came from, since it gives off abyssal energy. The mage asks why they should help, so the adventurer reminds them that they gave him access to the Rune Essence mine. But the mage points out that access to the abyss was already given in return for that, so our protagonist adopts a new tactic, wondering aloud why the mage is not interested in an amulet with the Order's logo giving off abyssal energy when the Order's wizards don't have access to the abyss. The Zamorakian inquires if the adventurer has shared the abyss's secret with the Order of Wizards, which they vigorously deny, sheepishly saying that they bought the amulet from an archaeologist. The mage rightfully believes there's something off about all of this, and asks to see the amulet again. He casts a spell on it, telling the adventurer it was to find out more about it. He admits that the amulet is very unusual, and agrees to help discover its origins, if they can do something for him in return. He needs a bucket of water and a strong cup of tea. He says the nearby tea seller owes him, and the adventurer should tell him Herbert sent them. "I never had you down as a Herbert," remarks the adventurer before leaving. They go to the tea seller for a strong cup of tea, which confuses the salesman. The adventurer mentions Herbert sent him for one, and the tea seller admits that Herbert's strong cups of tea are actually just my regular cups of tea, but if it makes him happy, he gives the adventurer a cup of tea. It is swiftly brought over to the Mage of Zamorak, along with a bucket of water. He immediately drinks the tea and tells the adventurer that since the spell to determine the amulet's origin can only be cast within the abyss, it will have to be cast by the Zamorakian initiate posted there. Before the teleportation, the adventurer asks what the bucket of water was for. Herbert explains that time moves slower in the abyss and the initiate maintaining the rift has been there for quite a while and needs a good bath. Our heroic quest seeker goes to the Dark Mage keeping the abyssal rift open and tells him they need help with an amulet. The Dark Mage tells him to hold on for a second, as someone is trying to communicate with him. He talks to some unknown individual for a second, casting a transfiguration spell to repair their runecrafting pouch. Which is pretty irrelevant for the quest, but I'm glad they put it in anyway. When the mage returns his attention to the adventurer, they throw the bucket of water at him, telling him it was requested by Herbert. The mage is furious. Are you serious? What if I'd lost concentration and let this rift collapse? Do you like having a brain that isn't made of mush? Because mush is all that would have been left. The adventurer dismissively says they like their brain the way it is and asks the mage for help. The soaked Zamorakian is clearly not happy to lend it, but since Herbert has been mentioned, he agrees to hear the adventurer out at least. He does in the end cast the spell on the amulet, saying it'll allow him to triangulate the location, but that thanks to the way time and space work in this place, the information won't necessarily come in the right order. 6 energy circles of different colors appear around the rift, and the mage tells the adventurer to work out which order it goes in. After interacting with the energy circles until they figure out the right order, they inform the dark mage, who pauses for a moment, as if lost in thought, before producing a scroll and writing something on it. He hands it to the adventurer, saying a competent enough wizard should be able to use it to cast a teleportation spell to take you right there. When the adventurer asks him about the location, he professes that he is undoubtedly an abyss expert, and yet there's something very strange about the place the amulet came from, although he doesn't give the adventurer any more details, returning his focus to the abyssal rift and telling them to go away. They dutifully return to Wizard Purston with the teleport spell. The wizard makes a copy of the scroll for herself and tells the adventurer that she'd like to share her theory for the amulet's origins with them before they attempt the incantation. She reveals she had a eureka moment while the adventurer was gone, realizing that the source of the amulet must be an ancient teleportation matrix to the runic altars, just like the one the ZMI have in the Abyss, which she says is good news, as such the teleportation matrix would be life-changing for her work. The rest of the Order should also be delighted, as it could completely remove the advantage the ZMI currently have. Purston asks for the amulet back and casts a spell on it, after which she comments it's not surprising, and she explains that the adventurer's ZMI friends put a transmission spell on the amulet, which would have given them all kinds of intel about the amulet's origin when the Order found out about it. She says it's not unexpected, and possibly even good news, as it means they probably have no intention of using the incantation themselves, if they are relying on the Order to get the information. She says she modified the spell to send false information back to them. While she cares little about the Zamorakians having the information, she wants to avoid them uncovering the mystery before she can. Performing the incantation will require the help of 3 other wizards, as it is very complex. I'm afraid I'm not including you in that, although you are very talented, she adds somewhat patronizingly. She says she has no doubts many wizards at the Wizard's Tower will jump at the opportunity to help her investigate this mystery, and the adventurer should bring the incantation to Archmage Cedridor while Purston gets her preparations done. She hastily adds that the adventurer should not mention the ZMI's involvement to anyone at the tower. It looks like even though she's known the adventurer for all of 2 conversations, she can already tell about their inability to read the room. Once at the tower, they ask Cedridor for help with an incantation, explaining it's a teleport that could take us to an ancient teleportation matrix that Purston believes could provide better access to runic altars, then adds that it seems to have some connection to your order, despite predating it by thousands of years. Of all the things he just heard, most shocking of all to Cedridor is learning that Purston sent the adventurer. She disappears for all this time, and then shows up again with knowledge on an ancient teleportation matrix, he exclaims, although he admits it's probably not the strangest thing she's done. He asks what specific help he needs to provide, and the adventurer says they need 3 more wizards to perform a spell. Cedridor asks to see the incantation, and after going over it, asks if it came from a Zamorakian wizard, telling the adventurer not to lie. They momentarily stumble on their words, which is all the answer the Archmage needs. He says the incantation is written on very thin flesh rather than parchment, a horrific practice only used by Zamorakians. Indeed, that is pretty horrific. He reminds the adventurer that it was Zamorakians who burned down the first Wizard's Tower, although the adventurer has already learned the Mage of Zamorak's version of the tale by that point, but more on that later. He tells the adventurer the last time he saw Perston, they had a discussion about changing her line of study due to her lack of results almost a year ago. She was then given no more than 1 year to produce something of note, and the convenient timing of a weird Zamarakian incantation with claims of an ancient teleport matrix surfacing right before the end of that deadline is not lost on him. The adventurer retorts that if all this turns out to be true, that teleportation matrix could change everything. His words, not mine. They admit that they went to some Zamarakians for help with the incantation, but they've had no other involvement, and Perston has even made sure they won't get anything beneficial out of it. Cedridor agrees to at least consider it, since the adventurer has proven to be very helpful to the Order before, but he wants to analyze the incantation thoroughly to make sure it's safe first. As for the wizards required for the incantation, he refuses to waste the Order members' time with a task he hasn't even agreed to allow yet, who says that Treborn has 3 new apprentices who could help, calling it a good learning opportunity for them. He sends the adventurer to Treborn to arrange things while he determines the safety of the incantation. The adventurer asks Treborn for his apprentices' help, but he says they're having a party, by which he means a study party. He invites the adventurer to it, saying, "You look like you could use one." The adventurer declines and tells the wizard that Cedridor said his apprentices could help. The wizard inquires about the incantation, and the adventurer explains it could lead us to an ancient teleportation matrix, which Treborn comments doesn't sound like the most comfortable place for a party, as he says it's probably full of thingamywhats as well. The adventurer clarifies that they're not looking to relocate the party there, only to discover the teleportation matrix's secrets. Wizard Treborn calls them a party pooper for wanting to cancel the party. The adventurer changes strategy, offering they finish it with a bang rather than cancel the party. Treborn says Cedridor won't be happy if we burn the place down again, but still likes the idea. He says he has tasked the apprentices with solving a problem, and they can celebrate once it's solved. The adventurer asks what this problem is, which turns out to be figuring out what a thingamywhat is. They speak to apprentice Felix, who seems to completely idealize Treborn, God knows why, but he says it's because he's the greatest expert on extraplanar magic, adding that this is why he has the smallest room in the entire tower. As he doesn't need space, he can just open a portal to create more. Nice justification, Jagex. Felix wants to specialize in the same branch of magic, and he's here to solve a puzzle. The adventurer compares their situations, saying they're also here on behalf of a wizard called Perston, who seems quite knowledgeable on different planes. They offer Felix the exclusive chance to help her uncover a teleportation matrix. Felix is delighted by the offer, saying Perston studied directly under Treborn for multiple years and that he'd love to meet her. The adventurer agrees to introduce them, but says Treborn will only allow them to leave once he solves the puzzle. They offer to help, but Felix is torn between not wanting Treborn to think poorly of him and getting the chance to work with Perston. He finally agrees to show the adventurer the puzzle. It's a piece of parchment that reads, "Water is 6 and mind is 8. A thingamywhat is less than 2 body and more than 2 earth. What is a thingamywhat?" The adventurer then goes to apprentice Tamara and asks her about Treborn's puzzle. She says she can't figure it out as there are too many unknown variables and is dubious about how it relates to a thingamywhat to begin with, whatever that actually is. The adventurer dutifully offers their help, and while she says it sounds like cheating, she really wants to beat the other apprentice, Cordelia, as it would be nice to finally win for a change. The adventurer reveals they're actually here to recruit all 3 apprentices to help uncover an old teleportation matrix, but that Treborn won't let them leave before the puzzle is solved. Tamara says teleportation magic is her specialty, and she's very excited at the idea. She agrees to let the adventurer help solve the puzzle, but only as long as they don't tell anyone. Her problem goes, Earth is 5 and air is 3. A thingamywhat is less than 3 fire and more than 1 mind. What is a thingamywhat? The adventurer finally goes to Cordelia, offering their help with Treborn's puzzle. She is insulted that the adventurer would think she needs any help, saying she'll prove she's smarter than the other apprentices. The adventurer says that they don't doubt her cleverness, but wants to see the puzzle to further their own knowledge and understanding. She laughs at this, saying she's not as easily fooled as the others. The adventurer just comes clean, admitting they don't care one bit about the puzzle, but want to recruit some talented wizards to help uncover a long-lost teleportation matrix to hopefully allow access to the runic altars. She says that's infinitely more interesting and is happy to get the adventurer's help if solving the puzzle quickly means that she can come along for the discovery. Her puzzle says, fire is 4 and body is 7. A thingamywhat is less than 3 water and more than 3 air. What is a thingamywhat? Combining the variables from all 3 parts of the puzzle allows the adventurer to easily figure out the answer. They go to Treborn and triumphantly tell him that a thingamywhat is 11. Apparently unbothered that the answer didn't even come from one of his students, Treborn congratulates them, saying, "It's easier to solve problems when you put aside what's best for you and instead focus on what's best for the team." A heartwarming lesson in unity and friendship if there ever was one. The 3 apprentices finally realize that they were meant to cooperate to solve the problem this whole time, and Treborn says they've all passed and can now finish with a bang. He sets off some fireworks for some reason, which sounds like a safety hazard in such a small room, but whatever, and tells the adventurer they should now let Cedridor know his apprentices are free to help. They go back to Cedridor's room, where they find Purston has returned, and Cedridor is now studying the amulet as he deems the incantation to be safe. The Archmage is telling Mia that she should be glad to even be allowed back, considering she brought a Zamorakian incantation, which she simply calls the unfortunate price of progress. Cedridor finally says the amulet seems safe as well, adding, "As much as I hate to admit it, your assessment seems to be correct." While clearly somewhat unhappy with the situation, he says the potential reward is too great to throw away, and the mission can proceed. The adventurer confirms Treborn's apprentices are ready, and the wizards prepare for the incantation. The adventurer Cedridor, Purston, Treborn, and his apprentices gather in the tower's basement and perform the spell, opening a portal to some unknown destination. Cedridor only allows Purston and the adventurer to venture through it, leading to protests from the apprentices. Treborn intervenes, saying they should be allowed to have their party. Cedridor thinks it's a bad idea, but allows Treborn to decide for his apprentices. One by one, everyone present but Cedridor and Treborn steps into the portal. A quick location spell and look at their surroundings later indicate that they are underwater somewhere south of Mauritania, in what looks like an ancient temple. They split up, exploring different parts of this curious location. Felix finds a plaque next to a large statue that reads, Aliyah, Justiciar of the Lion and Guardian of the Temple of the Eye. He makes the assumption that this must be the name of this strange place, and he says he's read about Justiciars before in a book, which said they were powerful warriors in service of Saradomin himself, back when the gods still walked among us. If accurate, this would make the temple very ancient indeed, since the gods have been absent from Gielinor for at least 2,000 years. The adventurer then goes to Tamara, who brings their attention to the nearby remains of a rune guardian, which she likens to the ones roaming the mage training arena. She theorizes the guardians must have once helped wizards use the teleportation matrix, if their theory is correct and this place once was one. The adventurer then asks Cordelia if she found anything interesting. She comments that there's something strange about this big hole here. It's giving out the tiniest amount of magical energy. The adventurer tries to comment on the strange plants looking like what they saw in the abyss, but Cordelia interrupts them, saying she's more than capable of working this out, and tells the adventurer to go help someone else instead. She really is a lovely lass, isn't she? The adventurer goes to Purston. She points out the markings at the center of the temple, saying they have a magical energy she's never felt before. She tells the adventurer to take a closer look and see if they can feel the energy as well. They attempt to investigate, but before they know it, they somehow end up transported to what seems like a recording of the past, witnessing 2 justiciars discussing the temple. When they come to, Preston summarizes what they've all learned so far, then turns around to study the huge hole in the north wall. Yet as she gets closer, a portal suddenly appears, and the scene quickly erupts into chaos. The portal sucks up Mia before she can react. Abyssal creatures pour out of it, but Cordelia casts a powerful spell that slays them all instantly. A huge runic guardian appears at the center of the temple, and Cordelia says not to expect another similar feat from her, as the impressive spell she cast severely drained her. The guardian appears to be on their side, telling the humans to use the cells and protect him while he closes the rift. The group doesn't know what a cell is, but Felix says he's found something. Small containers imbued with trace amounts of runic energy. The adventurer says they'll take one to Tamara, and Felix warns them not to take more than one. He says he's tried, and it made the energy within them explode. So if you've ever wondered why you can't grab more than one cell during the Guardian of the Rift minigame, there's your answer. The adventurer brings a weak cell to Tamara, who suggests they place it on the socket on the floor next to them. Doing so erects a barrier in front of the portal. However, it probably won't last long against the onslaught of the abyssal creatures, which are still emerging from the portal. So the Great Guardian tells the humans to place cells within imbued rocks to restore his brethren. The adventurer relates this to Felix, who says he believes the essence piles here are actually remains of old guardians. He suggests infusing them with cells, but they will need to shape the essence first to repair the guardians. Felix spots a nearby chisel on the floor, and the adventurer quickly sets to work crafting a runic guardian and infusing it with a weak cell. It works, creating a guardian which follows the symbol on the floor. The adventurer builds another guardian out of the other pile, and that one follows the other symbol. The elemental and catalytic guardians begin fending off the abyssal creatures. The Great Guardian says it lacks the necessary energy to close the rift, and Tamara doubts the cells would work for that purpose. She has another idea, however. She points out that all of the fallen guardians around them were once powered using runic energy. She believed they might be able to capture the runic energy needed by harvesting fragments of them. The adventurer finds a pickaxe lying around and quickly mines some fragments off of some remains. They ask Felix his opinion on how to proceed, and he says he believed the nearby workbench here might have been used for exactly that purpose, as they are full of pure essence, although he doubts there will be enough for the task. Thinking on their feet, the adventurer suggests combining the fragments and pure essence, which Felix believes is a great idea. The question now is how to imbue them with runic energy. The Great Guardian says it will use the power of the abyss to open a portal to the runic altar of mind. Tamara tells the adventurer to go craft some runes there, so that the essence they have can capture the released runic energy. Before they go, she also tells them to bring an uncharged cell with them, as she has a theory to test. The adventurer grabs an empty cell and teleports to the mind altar. As they craft some mind runes, the Guardian essence gets imbued with catalytic energy, while the cell absorbs a small amount of excess energy from the process. They return to the temple and show Tamara what happened with the essence and cell. She says it was what she was hoping for, saying they should replace the barrier cell to strengthen their defenses, then use the stones to power up the big Guardian. The adventurer repairs the barrier and powers up the Great Guardian, but it says more energy is needed. Tamara says they should just repeat the process, and the Great Guardian this time opens up a portal to the water altar. The adventurer repeats the steps, but this time crafting some water runes. When they power up the Guardian, it says even more stones are needed. Tamara notices the cell absorbed more energy than last time, which she says makes sense, as the amount of runic energy varies from altar to altar. She tells the adventurer to build a new runic guardian with the medium cell, while she studies a water talisman they found while imbuing essence fragments at the altar. The adventurer resembles a medium elemental guardian, which is visibly stronger than the weak ones. Tamara says they're almost there, and just a little more energy should be needed for the Great Guardian to close the rift. The Guardian, however, says it needs to conserve its energy and must close the water altar portal. The adventurer objects, saying they need it now, but Tamara tells them she believes there's an alternative. She thinks that the water talisman they found can be used to return to the altar without the portal being open. The adventurer grabs another cell and more Guardian Essence, then puts the theory to the test, and is indeed teleported to the water altar when the talisman interacts with the water pillar. Once more, they craft some runes and return to the temple. The adventurer at last finishes charging the Great Guardian, who casts a powerful spell that finally manages to close the rift. The group has a much-needed moment to breathe and process everything that just happened. Firstly, they decide that this is the perfect moment to subscribe to the channel since they made it this far into the video. Then, the Great Guardian tells the humans about the history of the temple. It was built by Saradominists long ago to house a powerful artifact known only as the Eye. It says that without it, there is no way to permanently seal the portal to the Scar, one of the most dangerous parts of the Abyss. It is bound to reopen soon, and for their own safety, the Guardian recommends the humans leave before that happens. Treeborn's 3 apprentices decide otherwise, however, saying that this is their fault and valiantly volunteering to stay and help defend the temple when the portal reopens. The adventurer is tasked to going back to Cedrador and explaining what happened, while they prepare for the next attack. The adventurer leaves the temple behind, returning to Cedrador and summarizing the events of the day. The Archmage is in disbelief, calling the mission a disaster and saying he knew he never should have agreed to this. He decides that all arrangements will be made to give the 3 apprentices all the help they need, and that research on the rift shall begin at once in the hope that a solution to seal the rift can be found eventually. Cedrador thanks the adventurer and apologizes for everything that happened, then gives them an item he says belonged to Purston, although he doesn't know how she got it. The item is a medium-sized rune crafting pouch. The adventurer asks if the Archmage believes Purston is still alive, and he replies that it is unfortunately unlikely, although he says that if anyone can survive the Abyss, it's her. And with that piece of foreshadowing for another quest series I will probably not be covering for a very long time, the adventurer's quest is complete. However, there are quite a few pieces of lore revealed during the quest series that I want to cover, so before we fully conclude the Order of Wizards questline, here's some appendices. If the adventurer asks the Mage of Zamorak about the ZMI after Enter the Abyss, he says their group is superior to the Order of Wizards, but since the latter wields a lot of influence on Gielinor, the Institute has been forced to operate in the shadows. He claims that the Order once allowed mages of all faiths in their ranks, but the Saradominists became greedy and banned Zamorakian wizards from some areas of study, justifying it by claiming them to be too dangerous when they really just wanted all the knowledge to themselves. The mage claims that a Zamorakian wizard made a great breakthrough in teleportation magic, but the Saradominists stole his research, and when they attempted to use it for a ritual without properly understanding the magic, things went sideways and caused the wizard's tower to burn down, taking many lives and years of research with it, including the original teleportation spell to the Rune Essence mine. He says they then blamed the catastrophe on the Zamorakians deliberately destroying the tower, which caused them to be banished from the Order and ostracized from most human societies, prompting them to create the underground ZMI organization. Do you remember when I said the adventurer had heard an alternative version of the tower's destruction? Yeah, that's the one. Also of great interest is the book on the Abyss given by the Mage of Zamorak. It contains fascinating information about several topics. First is the Abyss itself. The Zamorakians' research has shown that it is not a dimension itself in the traditional sense, but rather some kind of multi-dimensional space connecting other planes of existence together. It also boasts unique properties, which are what makes it so useful. One may enter and leave it from an identical spot, yet end up in a completely different place on the other side. Furthermore, time works differently there, as you can spend hours in the Abyss while mere moments have passed on Gielinor. The book also explains that the Rune Essence pouches are actually surplus organs of abyssal creatures, and that while they look small, They are able to carry some various unstable magical objects in volumes that should be seemingly impossible, most famously rune and pure essence, hence these pouches being so useful for saving inventory space. Experiments showed that the pouches slowly degraded when items were moved from the abyss to another world through them, but that they could be easily restored by casting a transfiguration spell on them from inside the abyss. The notes also describe how teleportation usually works. The caster very briefly travels through the abyss, and the speed and direction programmed into the spell is what allows them to end up in a somewhat reliable destination. The Zamorakians gained access to the abyss by pure accidents when one of their members' teleportation spell failed, and they ended up stranded inside the abyss rather than being instantly redirected. To gain a more permanent access, they had many members teleport repeatedly to various locations until they could replicate the incident. When an initiate finally managed to stay in the abyss, they cast a teleportation portal spell from inside to allow access to the other members on the outside. The man is still inside, maintaining the spell. With a foothold inside the abyss, they were then able to create more portals using the rift, which they used to their advantage by directing one for every known runic altar. This, as well as their discovery of the Urania altar, is what allowed the ZMI to get so far ahead of the Order of Wizards in terms of magic and rune crafting research. With how much every quest in this series has dug deep into otherwise mostly unexplored lore, I would love to see a new entry one day that could teach us more about other aspects of the science behind magic and rune crafting, if you can call that a science. And I think there's great potential for a new chapter of the story. Since the ZMI is so far ahead of the Order of Wizards, but the latter has now found both a teleportation matrix and a way back to the Rune Essence mine, it would make sense to me if the Zamorakians tried some high-risk, high-reward plan to destroy the Order before they can close the gap. It would be very on theme for Zamorak worshippers to go all in on a crazy plan before they lose their advantage over their enemies. Feel free to share in the comments what you would love to see if they released a fourth entry in the Order of Wizards questline. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, go ahead and do all of the classics, like, subscribe, share, etc. Or don't, I will still love you, but it does help the channel. If you want to know more about the Temple of the Eye, check out my Third Age video to find out its role in the God Wars. And if you really like the sound of my voice, check out my other channel, which contains an open love letter for the OSRS wiki, and you'll also find my Twitch channel in the description. I really need a coffee refill now, so that'll be it for me. Thanks again for watching, you're a legend, and I will see you next time.